Welcome to Construction Genius. My guest today is Gonzalo Galindo, the head of Cemex Ventures. And Gonzalo's focus is working with Contech startups, entrepreneurs, universities, and other entities, and finding innovative business models for the construction industry that help to propel innovation, sustainability, and digitization in the construction industry. So our talk today is all about where we are now as far as tech is concerned in construction and where we are going in the future, including Gonzalo's 5-year forecast in terms of where we will be with the use of technology in construction. Great news about Gonzalo is that he comes from a deep pool of experience working with construction companies. He isn't pie in the sky in terms of the use of technology. It's very pragmatic, very straightforward, and very helpful. So listen carefully to the interview. Make sure you check out the website Cemex Ventures, where they have a number of resources that can be beneficial to you, including a report on the top 50 Contech startups, construction technology startups, that you can download for free. And thank you today for listening to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Gonzalo, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, I'm very glad to have you. As we kick off our discussion here today, can you give the audience a little bit of your background, how you got into construction and the position you're in now?
Sure. Well, I'm a veteran in Cemex. I've been 25 years in this company doing all sorts of trades. I started doing business development, buying and selling companies in Asia, Europe, North America. Did a little bit of a stint in strategic planning for the group. Managed our operations in the UK, in the US. For the last 7 years, I've been doing what we call Cemex Ventures, which is not only the open innovation platform for Cemex, but handling the whole innovation process for Cemex and coordinating. No? How I ended up here, it's kind of an accident. I used to be a consultant at McKinsey. After 6 years, I decided that consulting was not necessarily something which I was interested in. So I jumped into the real life and joined Frito-Lay, which is the snack food business for PepsiCo. I was there a couple of years, and at some point I decided to leave Mexico City, my hometown. The company which was outside Mexico City, in Mexico those days, which had the most international projection, was Cemex. So I ended up joining Cemex, and since then has been a 25 years career, which I actually haven't been in Mexico at all. I mean, I've been traveling all around trying to do business for the company.
Let me just take you back early in your career with Cemex. Coming from a consulting background, obviously you have a certain framework for looking at companies and things like that. What was unique about the way Cemex looks at companies in terms of the ones that they want to buy?
Well, in those days, I was impressed with the company in the way that they actually look at the opportunities. It was very thorough and very well thought why we were investing in those countries, in those economies, in those companies. They have a very well planned process on how to go about the acquisitions, the due diligence, evaluating, negotiating, and so on. At the end of the day, any negotiation can go anywhere, no? But the company was very well prepared from the strategic point of view on where and why and how. This type of economies, this type of countries, this type of companies, and be very thorough about the valuations and what should be the limits of what we should pay and so on. I mean, those days, that industry and the company were different. The industry has changed substantially.
Sure. That's interesting, but they were clear on the where, the why, and the how.
Yeah, exactly.
One last question on this before we dive into the meat of our conversation, just because it's interesting to me. When you were involved in those negotiations, what would be one of the red flags that would cause you, after doing all of that due diligence, to say, you know what, we're going to walk away from this deal?
Well, I think we were very thorough in doing due diligence into the companies and trying to figure out whether there were no dead bodies in the closet.
Yeah.
That was a killer, no? And the other one was being as disciplined as possible in knowing how much we should pay for that asset.
Okay.
And of course, that's a subject thing.
Yes.
I think in some cases we pay the exact amount. In some other cases we might overpay. In some other cases we get a bargain. No, at the
Yep.
end of the day, it's a result of a negotiation. But try to be as disciplined as possible in those decisions is key.
Yes. So, what would be, sorry, I said one more question, but I'll just give you one more. What would
Okay.
be an example of one of those dead bodies, so to speak, that would say, okay, no, we're not going to go forward, even if it looks like a good deal and it works financially and all that kind of stuff?
Well, but from the technical point of view, you find something in the assets that it's out of whack. I mean,
Yep.
for example, if you're analyzing a cement plant, the cement plant lives from the reserves of raw materials that you have, and probably their calculations say you have 50 years, but you do the calculation that you said you have 5 years. I mean, you're not going to buy a cement plant for 5 years.
Yep.
And things like that, tax issues,
Yep.
ownership issues, things like that.
Great. I really appreciate you diving into that. I could ask you a bunch more questions, but I know we want to dive into your work around Cemex Ventures. So, obviously, construction technology is something that is on the mind of every single construction company owner. There's a bunch of activity going around the industry in terms of improving the efficiency. From a technology perspective, why do you think the construction industry is difficult to disrupt?
Well, we can write an encyclopedia about this. Several factors around it. Now, look, at the end of the day, the construction industry is probably the most diverse industry in many ways. Talking about construction in one country can have different shapes and forms of construction. I mean, one thing is building a bridge or a high rise building, another thing is building 5 houses in a condo. Another thing is self-construction, no? Which, for example, in Latin America or Southeast Asia or India and so on, is very common that people actually self-build a lot of their needs to improve of their low-income housing.
Yep.
So you are talking about different segments and different aspects of construction. The second thing, which is very important to understand, is that in a specific construction project, it's not that a construction company comes in and builds and goes. It's a lot of people and different trades and skills involved.
Yes.
I mean, you start the construction project with an architect, then you have specifiers, then you have engineers, then you have the construction company. The construction company subcontracts the foundations guy, the windows, the bathrooms, the plumbers, the electricians. So you start adding trades here and there. The amount of people which participate, and all I'm saying is, it happens the same for a high-rise building than from a single house, and start adding, and then somebody which comes in and do the finishes and the painting and so on. So really coordinating all that is a mess. Then you have other industries which are participants in the system, like us. I mean, we're a building materials company. We don't necessarily build anything, but nothing is built without us.
Yes.
No? So then we come into terms, no? Then to the supply of materials, the supply of services. If you ask any single job site manager today, one of the number 2 or 3 key questions he will be asking is, where are my materials? And where are my materials, he doesn't mean where are they. It's when are they going to arrive, and are they going to arrive in quality and on time and in cost. So you start adding complexity. And then not only that, you have developers, which are the guys promoting the construction, for example, in housing, and then you have banks, which are the guys financing that.
Yep.
And then on top of that, if you see the whole value chain, you will see that each one of those guys has a different profile of financial return and financial success in the whole process. Usually, I mean, we did these numbers like 7 years ago, but I don't believe they have changed substantially. 60 to 70% of the profit pool of a project, especially large project, will stay in between the bank and the developer. So the rest of the guys, the engineer, the contractor, will have to split the other 30. No? So you have guys which have 10% of that, guys who have 2% of that. And usually the construction firms, which are the largest pool of all these, are usually the guys with the lowest returns. So really disrupting this for a guy which, if they make a mistake, because they're trying a new technology, the slim return they will have will disappear. Then there's a lot of resistance. And on top of that, you have to put in the same line, in the same page, a lot of people.
Yep. Okay, so construction's diverse, construction's complex, construction's risky, and mistakes are costly. With all that being said, What are some of the specific areas of that value chain from your perspective that are the ones that people can leverage or really pay attention to in terms of making changes with the use of technology?
Sure. Look, I'm going to go a little bit back in the history of technology in construction and try to reconnect a little bit of what I've seen. And it doesn't mean this is written by law, no, it's what I've seen. I
Excellent.
think construction started using technology based on the bare necessities.
Yes.
So they started looking into, okay, we have a lot of paper here. Okay, but let's start to digitize that paper and start to having that communication of papers in a digital way. They started looking at is a pain in the neck connecting and communicating with each other. Okay, plus on top of that, why don't we add to that capability the capability of having digital platforms in which we can connect each other. So if I am the architect and the construction company says, okay, I finished this room, can you check whether it's up to the standards? Okay, you can go in and check and put your comments and things like that. So it was very basic at the beginning. Of course, it started even early on with, for example, architects using, instead of painting everything by hand, using programs to actually do the plans and so on. But then moving into the actual construction itself, the job site management, it started really by getting paper out, getting communications better.
Yep.
Later on, they started to see how we can actually manage projects better. It's not only about communicating and so on, but can we do better plans? Can we do better job site plans? Can we do better programs of how things should be happening? Then can we actually check whether what we done is properly done in a much more better way? Meaning, instead of somebody going around the job site and saying, oh, that pipe is wrong. Oh, you missed a door here. Well, somebody with a 3D camera or with a 360 camera or somebody with a drone flying around saying, oh, you missed this one, you missed this one. And somehow digitally connecting that with the original plans, which are already digitized, and find clashes and so on. And that's what has been happening probably over the last 7 years, really adding digital technologies to actually execute, supervise, and plan better a job site. Mm-hmm. So where we stand today, and probably I'm missing a couple of other capabilities, but in basic terms, that's what has been happening over the last 7 years and a little bit more probably. Where we stand today, I think today, those which are really interested in moving forward the disruption and digitalization and influence of technology into a construction project are thinking about already about more about can we use robotics better? It's difficult to use robotics because a job site changes every day.
Yes.
It's not that you put a robotic one day and no, it changes every day. You will have to start moving the robot to year around, or the robot has to have certain capabilities to move itself. What about we start using the data we're generating already and start to creating better ways of thinking about the next steps and more artificial intelligence and prediction of how to control the jobs better? The other thing is sustainability, and this is something which is going to start growing very fast in certain countries where regulation will start being very, very tough on that. How about the embodied carbon of the building? How about the electricity efficiency of the building? Can we, since day zero, even 2 years before we actually start constructing the building, can we do something in terms of the materials, the HVAC, the air conditioning that we're going to do, the piping that will improve all that, how we can compare materials here and there with embodied carbon, environmental product declarations, and things like that. Not all that will be trends that moving forward will be very important. But still, I think we need to come into terms with a couple of things. One is how we're going to manage better and improve the supply chain of projects. Today, I mean, managing materials, moving materials is a pain in the neck because, I mean, just one small room needs concrete, steel, isolation material, windows. I mean, just us. And all that coming together in organized fashion and so on, that's complex.
Yep.
That has to be. And the other is there any way we can build better? I mean, change completely the way we build. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of efforts in the past, and in some countries they have been fairly successful in using industrialized construction, offsite construction, meaning doing a wall here and so on. But in real fact, it hasn't taken off so strongly and fast as probably the whole industry would like wanted. But the fact is that skilled workers will be in shortfall in the future, and sooner or later we will have to think about different ways of actually building.
Yes. Okay, so that's a great overview there. We start with communication, using technology to help with communication. And those main areas there that you talked about there, robotics, data analysis, sustainability, the supply chain, and then building better through industrialization of the construction processes. When you think about those big picture items, which ones are most interesting to you or most likely to be areas where the investment will come in and the progress will be made?
Good question. It will change, I think, region by region and country by country.
Yes.
And if you talk about, for example, the US, it might change even state by state,
Yes.
even county by
so.
county, even
Yes.
county by county. No? But, for example, you will have places like California, Europe, in which environmental regulation will get tougher and tougher. I think in those places, sustainability matters will start to take much more serious interest about the whole players.
Mm-hmm.
You will see places, for example, Florida, for example, which used to be a state in which you have a lot of masonry construction, especially in the south because of the hurricanes and so on. Since 2008 crisis, vast majority of the masons left the state or changed trades. They are now making tacos or in agriculture or whatever. They are not masons anymore. So finding masons is a challenge.
Right.
So probably you might see a trend of people trying to figure out how can I build differently without having to install every single brick one at a time.
Yeah.
Then you have, where else? Robotics is one for me tough to chew right now. Probably infrastructure projects might be more prone to use robotics as we start seeing right now. For example, highways and so on. I mean, you're not have to put the machine 3 meters up. I mean, you have to advance with the job site.
Yep.
Things like that. So it will be different in different situations. But certainly sustainability is one which will start marking the steps, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, as we go through with environmental regulations. And data analytics for sure. Data analytics will be taken care of or at least look into everywhere in the world because number one is a trend, not only construction. And number two, it makes sense. No, and it's number three is potentially cheaper than developing a machine.
Yeah, it's optimizing what you're already doing as opposed to bringing in something new that you haven't used before that might be difficult to use.
Exactly. And for example, sustainability is very important. You think about the building, but for example, for us as an industry providing materials, we produce cement, we produce aggregates, we produce ready-mix concrete. We are heavy emitters of CO2. No?
Yeah.
So for us, we need to clean our act and reduce our emissions and become net zero because we want to comply with the COP20 something and with the whatever regulation and good wishes of cleaning the world of the global warming. We have stringent targets that we need to comply to 2013 reduction of our carbon footprint, and we want to be net zero at 2050. That requires a lot of implementation of climate tech and clean tech technologies, which take a lot of money to develop. I mean, a carbon capture unit to capture the CO2 production in our cement plants will cost a lot of money. And then we need to figure out what we're going to do with that CO2.
Yeah.
Are we going to sink it? Are we going to send it to a oil well in the middle of the sea? Are we going to convert it into something else? I mean, that a construction company is not thinking about it, not an architect. It's my problem to solve it for them.
Yeah. It's interesting because that then begs the question, what is the driver of technology change? Is it business need or is it government regulation or is it a combination of the two? In your experience, where do you find those drivers coming from?
It's a chicken and the egg for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes, from the business perspective, we do things which are good because it's good business. For example, we've been changing our fuels. The way we produce cement, we need a lot of heat. And in order to create heat, we need to burn fuels.
Yes.
We've been changing our fuel philosophy for the last 20-something years because it made economic sense in many cases. And on top of that, we might reduce our emissions. And we've been reducing our emissions for the last 20 years. We emit less than half of the CO2 that we should emit in 2002. But Now that we have stringent regulations on top of that, but then we need to also catch up and step up our game. So it's a little bit the chicken and the egg. And in doing so, in complying with regulation, I think in general terms, companies need to see that as an opportunity to be more profitable and more, not only the better citizen, but there's opportunity to become a more profitable company if you comply with regulation, if you do it the right thing. And if everybody jumps into the same bandwagon.
We mentioned robotics and data analysis, and I know those are topics that are on the top of people's minds. What are some of the non-obvious areas in the construction industry where tech is going to have an impact? What's the thing that we're not seeing that is really going to make a change?
I think there's plenty of solutions right now which are being very efficient for other industries, which could become very important for the construction world. For example, I was talking about supply chain. Supply chain is probably the reason of, I'll be brief with a number, but I would say 1/3 of the problem in delaying a project.
Yes.
Some others are the actual construction, the mistakes, overruns, the lack of programming, and so on. But at the end of the day, all that happens at the job site, and then you have the supply chain of materials coming back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have to deal with a different world. It's not about masons, it's not about plumbers, it's about trucking,
Mm-hmm.
it's about logistics, it's about drivers. The US right now has a shortfall of drivers, which is dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
So putting that together in order is a challenge.
Yeah.
Because it's not the same to transport a ready-mix truck that a truck with glass or a flatbed with cement bags or steel or a container with tiles. I mean, it's so diverse. But at the end of the day, you need to start using some technologies like last mile delivery, like logistics algorithms, AI as well, to actually start to make that make more sense. The problem with that is that it's a much more deconstructed value chain because
Yes.
it's not that, for example, in our case, we might have tens of thousands of trucks in the street, but those tens of thousands of trucks might move only like 20 or 30% of what we need to move. We need to tap into trucking companies, which might be big or one-man show. So putting all that together in a digital solution which can help us do that more seamless is not necessarily a walk in the park.
Hey, this is Eric. Hope you're enjoying our conversation today with Gonzalo. And now is the time when I tell you all about my book. If you're going to implement construction technology in your company effectively, it's going to be driven by the leadership of the organization. And that's exactly why you should read this book, Construction Genius. Effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. Really interesting. I was talking to a gentleman who's read this book, and he gave it to his wife. And his wife said, hey, he's talking about you in this book. That's why you should read this, because it's really directed to the owners of construction companies and the leaders of construction companies, and it'll really help you to run a more effective business. So go out and get yourself a copy, get copies for your leadership team, share it with them, and take one chapter a month, read it, think about the applications of it, make slow, steady, incremental changes in your business, and it can really change the way that your business operates. So go out to Amazon, get Construction Genius today. And now back to our discussion on all things Contech with Gonzalo. So in the chain of construction, who should take the responsibility for the improvement of the supply chain? Because a contractor is saying, well, what can I do about the supply chain?
No, I think those guys are already full of problems to take. It's our problem.
Yeah.
It's the supplier's problem.
Yeah, that's interesting. What does Cemex focus on in terms of making sure that their relationships with their clients, with the end user, with the contractor, how do you guys maintain those relationships? What are some of the things that you focus on?
For the last almost 10 years, 8 to 10 years, we embarked ourselves in a digitalization process. It's not that we were not digitalized. I mean, we actually changed the whole philosophy of digitalizing our company. And we started that change of process by starting from the customer backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about what we do. Let's go to the customer. Let's try digitize our relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
Facilitate him dealing with us. Mm-hmm. He has already too many problems. Okay, let's make his relationship with us as smooth and seamless as possible.
Yep.
And then we start digitizing backwards everything, all the way from order taking, programming, blah, blah, blah. We go into production, the administration, account receivables, complaints, and everything. No? So through this platform that we call CemexGo, the customer should be able to basically deal with 90% of the problems we will give him in a smooth, seamless way. And since we have already that, we're starting already to go the next step of it. What additional value added services we can give this guy that even facilitates his life better? Dynamic pricing, dynamic deliveries, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, the decision was okay, this guy has a lot of problems at the job site. Let's make sure that this guy not interacts less with us. We like the interaction. We like them to be happy with us. We like them to be friends with us. But let's make sure that the nuances of dealing in a transaction are solved. Nuances of ordering are solved. Nuances of claiming about something went wrong are solved as simple as possible. No? Digitalizing as much as possible.
So, in terms of the way you look at investing in Contech companies, what are some of the key criteria that drive your decision in terms of where you decide to invest your money?
I think the 80-90% of our investments are related to technologies, business concepts, or innovation, which will help Cemex achieve certain strategic objectives.
Yes.
And among those is sustainability matters, meaning carbon capture, carbon usage, carbon storage, alternative sources of heat and power like hydrogen, circular economy. We believe that the future of construction will use a lot of waste. We use a lot of waste a lot already in producing our products and in heating our kilns and so on. But we also believe that a lot of construction and demolition waste will be recycled into new materials. I mean, use the same brick 2, 3, 4 times if possible. That's the principle. We also look a lot into the future of building materials.
Yes.
Are we going to deliver a ready-mix truck tomorrow? Are we going to deliver a whole wall? It's going to be a concrete wall. It's going to be a concrete composite wall or something different. Can that wall do different things like transmit electricity or data in itself? Things like that. Are we going to build the same? Is finally industrialized construction going to take off? And if that, how can we that help be part of that?
Yes.
We also invest a lot or search a lot of innovation into the supply chain as well, like last mile delivery issues, facilitating communications with job site and suppliers, buying simpler, buying cheaper, things like that. And last but not least, as well, productivity. Not only our productivity, but our customers' productivity. We sometimes invest in things that sometimes many of my colleagues in Cemex say, why the hell is Gonzalo investing in this, which doesn't have any connection with Cemex? Yes, but this can in the future, we are taking a bet about certain concepts that probably in the future might be helpful to our customers, and that customer might think about Cemex in a better way because I'm giving them the certain additional value.
Yeah. When you're investing in a company, I'm just curious. Obviously, the technology and how it relates to the various strategies that Cemex has is important. What role does the people who are running the companies, what role does that have in you deciding on whether or not to invest?
It has a lot. There are certain areas of our investments which, from the technology point of view, are so specific and so complex that, and I cannot claim to be an expert to understand them fully. So we rely a lot on our R&D people, our engineers to help us evaluate those technologies and so on. There are some other concepts which I might believe are more easy to understand and I might believe which are a good solution. But at the end of the day, if the guy in the street, my salesman, my logistics guy doesn't agree with me, I'm just going to hit the wall.
Right.
It sounds very easy and romantic, but in practical terms, it's not a walk in the park to actually sit down with those guys and tell them, what about you're going to start using this instead of what you've been doing for the last 20 years? That's a different ballgame.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that leads me to another question then. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen construction companies make when they are evaluating or implementing new technology in their business?
As I mentioned, especially construction companies, which are the guys with the slimmest margins in the whole value chain, they tend to be not all of them, because it has changed, but they tend to be very cautious about testing new technologies because know that if something goes wrong, it might cost them dearly. And secondly, usually a construction job site goes, very tight on schedule.
Yes.
So stopping, connecting, and testing something new, it's not necessarily something a job site manager will be very willing to do. Having said that, I think there are few construction companies, and not few, and there are more and more every day, that have been very bright in pushing things forward, in testing things, in implementing things. And what I think a couple of common aspects that I've seen in those companies, number one, they really invest, not necessarily in the companies, in the startups, but they invest a lot of time in understanding what solutions are there, what the benefit might be, and so on. They spend a lot of time with job site managers and people in the field, understanding whether this is going to be something you will be willing to use. They are very thorough in organizing how are they going to pilot that in order to actually measure whether that was successful or not.
Yeah.
And those companies, which are already growing, and there are quite a few already, especially in the US and in Europe, they've been very successful in implementing things.
It's interesting because when we think about the incentives that people have to change, and you described many of the disincentives that construction companies have to change, it makes me think that a lot of the technology change that is going to occur is going to be because of government regulation. In other words, you're going to be talking to your foreman and you're going to be saying to them, it doesn't really matter whether or not you want to do this. You actually have to do this because the government is going to regulate us as far as this is concerned.
It may for certain things. It is happening for certain others. But there are sometimes others that the government might say, I don't care what you do, I need this to happen.
Yeah.
For example, sustainability. Certainly, government will start to becoming tougher in terms of, I want to see more recycled materials. I want the embodied carbon to be lower. I want this and this and that.
Yep.
Some others, like the UK, the use of BIM or use of certain digital technologies, they for every single government project, they say, I want BIM to be used.
Yep.
And if you're not going to use it, I'm not going to even see your offer.
Yeah.
Some others, they might tell you, I need this to be finished in 40 days. Do whatever.
Yep. Yeah, that's interesting.
Then you will figure out how to make it in 40 days.
Yep. So you guys have a report that you put out on the top 50 tech startups that you see making an impact. Can you tell us a little bit more about that report and how you go about putting that together?
Yes. Every year we do a couple of events which are very important, which lead to they end up being kind of summarized in the top 50 report.
Yep.
Throughout the year, we do a lot of effort in creating a network of partners, which help us to actually search for new startups, new technologies, evaluate new things. To solidify those partnerships, we do a lot of meetings, conversations, participate in forums, but we also launch what we call the Construction Startup Competition, which is probably the largest competition of startups in the construction world. And we do that in partnership with other companies which are interested in the same thing, like companies like Ferrovial in Spain, like Vinci in France, like Saint-Gobain in France, like Trimble in the US, like Haskell in the US. And sorry if I don't finish mentioning all the others partners, no? But through that, we end up evaluating 500, 600 startups every year and give us the opportunity to have an exchange of ideas and opportunities of what will be relevant for the different contractors, the suppliers, the digital providers, and so on in the future of construction. So based on that, we start narrowing down based on conversation of we see every year close to 1,000 startups probably, plus the 600, blah, blah, blah. So we start narrowing as a team within Cemex Ventures and also sometimes conversation with those partners on which are those startups we believe next year will be the ones to watch.
Yep.
And we end up coming up with a list of 50.
Yep.
Some of them might be arguable for some people, some others not, everybody might be in agreement, but it's our list. Yes. And they launched that list, which actually will be launched very soon now, not only with the announcement of these are the guys which if I were you in the construction world, I will be watching in 2024, either as a user or as an investor or as a company which wants to test them or simply because you want to follow up the top 50 companies. But we also accompany that with a report about the state of construction technology, venture capital affairs. What happened in 2023? Was a good year, a bad year? Which are the technologies which were more favorable? What type of things are people investing? Are they investing in early stages, in late stages, and so on? And then we give an opinion, which is the opinion of Cemex Ventures, of what do we believe will happen with construction tech venture capital in 2024 this year. And we will be launching the top 50 report, which is probably the fourth or fifth report we launch in the next couple of weeks.
Excellent. And so we will provide links in the show notes for people so that they can go out and take a look at that top 50 report and also learn more about the state of construction technology and things like that. All of that will be in the show notes.
And hopefully they can give us feedback, because at the end of the day, giving an opinion about the future is an opinion.
Yes, yeah, it is.
I might be right, I might be wrong. So if people believe the opposite or agree with me, I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, that's excellent. So then, staying in the realm of opinion and speculation, let's do a little waving of magic wands. Based on your experience in the industry and where you see the investments coming and the changes happening, paint us a picture for what a job site might look like for a decent size commercial project 5 years from today, which is January 18th, 2024, as we record this.
Okay, 5 years?
Yes.
Good question. I think the job site will look substantially more digitized than what we see today. We will see more robotics doing certain jobs, like, for example, drywall, or, for example, supervision or review of advance. I mean, you won't have one guy even walking with a 360 camera. You will have a robot just taking picture and telling already reports saying, that window is 5 millimeters away, things like that. I will see probably a much more seamless way of dealing with subcontractors for general contractors, and a much more seamless way for the whole guys at the job site in organizing and dealing with suppliers. Much more better organized in a digital way. We start seeing, for example, solutions which actually help general contractors to organize how suppliers will arrive, where to store the materials, how to trigger orders, and so on. That will be, for that specific job site that you're talking about, that will be kind of the norm. I think we will see a much more stringent mindset about health and safety.
Yes.
Doesn't mean it doesn't happen today, but it will be in crescendo. And last but not least, that job site will have sustainability credentials substantially better than whatever building is built today.
Yeah.
Not only from design point of view, but from the materials point of view as well.
What is the one area where you don't think progress is going to be made?
I think supply chain issues are still going to take some effort to be solved.
Yep.
I think robotics will start making inroads, but as mentioned, with very simple tasks.
Yep.
I think AI will start to provide some solutions. The problem with job site, with construction in general, and it's also one of the issues why it's hard to disrupt, is that there are not two projects which are the same.
Yeah. It's interesting.
You can build a building here, and you can want to build the same building next door, and you will face a different problem.
Yes.
Something unexpected.
Yep. Yeah, that's interesting. It seems like in construction, there are some things that the unique aspects of construction will never change, whether it's geographic, whether it's methods, whatever the case is, whether it's government differences in government regulations.
I wouldn't say it will never change. I will say some things will be harder to solve.
Yes. Interesting.
And again, the generational change
Yes.
eventually will end up eating problems that people my age don't think about it, or
Yes.
don't think it's a problem.
Yes.
The mindset of if it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Yes.
For me, it ain't broken, but for somebody else, it might be broken. No?
Yeah. Excellent. So, Gonzalo, right now you're in Madrid, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, if I'm visiting Madrid, what is the one restaurant I should go to?
Damn, that's the most difficult question. This is probably...
I know, that is the most difficult question I have for you today.
No, what can I tell you? It's damn hard. Damn hard. And you know why? Because I used to live in Madrid 15 years ago. Then I left. Then I've been back for the last 7 years. And the restaurants and bar scene has changed completely. It has become substantially more diverse, substantially more sophisticated. So you can still go to a very traditional Spanish restaurant and you will have a blast of flavors. But today you will find food from almost every corner in the world in Madrid. And the quality of ingredients makes a big difference. So you will find great food.
So if I want traditional Spanish, let's say I'm coming in from the States, I want the Madrid experience, I want traditional Spanish, where would you go?
In Madrid, I mean, the usual suspect like El Botín and so on, which are the traditional restaurants and Casa Luz and things like that, those are very traditional. They have been forever, very touristic, I might say, but they still make the cut on with regards nice traditional Spanish food. No, there's plenty of others. Like I mean, I used to be more of a foodie. Now I spend more time at home, but I mean, you will have, but there are new Spanish restaurants who are great, like Las Tortillas de Galindo or El Fish Muller and so on, which are really nice, no? And they smell, it's like Spanish food with a modern spin already. There's plenty of 1 Michelin star, 2 Michelin stars, 3 Michelin stars, which I even lost track of who's who and how much they charge you. But I mean, believe me, don't follow my advice. Ask, and you will find a nice place, I can guarantee.
Great. So we're going to leave it at that. So let me ask you a simpler question then. If I'm visiting Madrid, what is the one spot that I need to definitely get to and not miss if I'm there for 2 or 3 days?
Look, there's plenty of the real traditional touristic places, which is nice. I mean, the Plaza Mayor, Plaza del Sol, but they're very crowded usually.
Yeah. Like
Palacio
non-crowded.
Imperial
Let's say a sneaky
Palacio
one.
Imperial tends to be less crowded. For example, there's a couple, the museums are nice. Obviously, El Prado and so on are nice. I'm not Spaniard, by the way. I'm from Mexico, but
Yeah.
been here quite a lot. But there are some other great places. For example, the Palacio de Liria, which is rather not that old museum, or the Museo Soroy is very nice. Always going to El Retiro Park is nice. It's really a nice place to visit. And the beauty about Madrid is that you can walk everywhere. You can sit in a bar, have a beer, then continue, then have a tapa here, then continue. And it's not necessarily whether I've been here. I mean, you will end up visit every single places. Madrid, at the end of the day, the historic sites are very close by, one from each other, and you can actually walk them all. But you can walk them having a beer here, then going there, taking a photograph, sitting down, watching people. I mean, it's a nice experience.
Nice. Excellent. So tell us how people can get in touch with you, how they can learn more about what Cemex Ventures is doing.
Okay, you can always visit our website, www.cemexventures.com, and then you can see what we do, the type of investment we have done, the top 50 report, the startup competition, and you can send us a message through the website, and we have people, and even myself, answering every single question we get on a timely manner.
That's great. Awesome. So cemexventures.com, we'll have the link in the show notes. You can go and check everything out there. Gonzalo, I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you for joining us today on Construction Genius.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks again for listening to Construction Genius. I appreciate Gonzalo coming on the show today. Again, go out to the website cemexventures.com and get yourself a copy of the top 50 Contech startups for 2024. This will give you some insights into where the industry is going and how you might use technology in your company to improve productivity, efficiency, safety, and profitability. Feel free to share the interview with other people that you think would benefit from listening to this particular discussion. And one more thing, give us a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts. That helps Construction Genius be seen across the internet. Thanks again for listening here today.